Okay, hello again. I was midway into getting this into its final rough condition, if that isn't too much of an oxymoron. And as I was doing that, something occurred to me that's key to understanding why small stems are such a pain in the butt and technically difficult. And it was when I realized I was using this little bitty file here. It's only 1/4 of an inch wide. And then I thought, wait a minute, there are people that are probably going to look at something that's this long as opposed to inches long and think, well, gosh, all I need is some sort of a sanding stick that's as wide as the stem is long, right? And then they can do the whole thing at once. And as attractive as that sounds, it doesn't work that way. And here's why. Even on an oval stem, and this, what I'm about to describe, is even worse, a bigger problem on a round stem, the radius of the partial circle changes over the length of that from being fairly flat at the button end to possibly completely round in the space of 1 inch or 1.25 inches. So there's no way that you can take a single surface and sand and roll around that and get the desired result. It just doesn't work that way. You'll end up either making the button too rounded over, or where it meets the shank, it'll be too flat. And you'll fight that, and then you'll start doing this number, going lengthwise and running into the problems of dwell time in sanding. So the best approach is to treat this like a long stem in terms of tool selection. Just reduce the size of the tools to match the stem. Where if you had a church warden, you might be using one of these big guys to go scraping down the length of that, and a medium-sized one, you take a, whatever that is, 1/2 inch or 5/8. On these little guys, use a small one, and I'll show you just what I mean. I'll do this in real time here. Okay, here's a sample of how it's done, at least the way I do it, and after years have come up with that as the straightest line between the 2 points we're trying to connect here. So that's it. Don't fall into the trap of thinking you can handle a short stem with a wide sanding stick. It won't work for you. Get these little bitty files and go to town. Just pretend it's a longer stem and treat it the same way, and then you don't run into all of the dwell time sag problems, and you're in complete control of the radii, that you can linger as long as you want in a certain spot. You can vary your pressure, you can vary the angle, whatever, and you can shrink this thing proportionately without having to play catch up anywhere. It's just going to uniformly get smaller in all dimensions, which is the only way to make a stem that I think is reliable. So anyway, that's it. I will now continue this, turn the camera back on when it's in its approaching finish sanding shape. Not quite that far, but close to it. Alrighty then. Okay, we are, well, pictures are worth 1,000 words, so I'll just let you eyeball this for a second. We're ready to start dealing with the button, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to move the camera and show you how I do it on. I used to, for many years, did this number to shape the button, and discovered a way that is easier, more reliable, and faster. So that's a good thing. The bad thing is it requires some specialized machinery, but I'll show it to you and you figure out if it's worth it to get something like it or not. In any event, notice that the width of this is starting to go down, but the marks on the sides of the button have stayed in place so that everything gets and stays square. And that's no problem to remove when we're ready to do so. So the body of this is about 95% shaped. I'm down to about 158 on the thickness back here, and made a decision to not replicate the thinness of the original because of that. What you see is the result of overly thinning a stem in that spot, and it could well have been a mistake at the time, so that, in other words, had a line worker at the Dunhill factory in 19 whatever this was, 59 or something, had made the button about 150 or 152 as opposed to maybe 140, what this looked like it was, it would have passed QA. In fact, this may have been on the overly thin side and got through as an error, because you normally don't see that from a production pipe. A few custom handmade, special request kind of pipes, you'll find that, but not really factory made. So we're going to not duplicate the dimensions of this thickness for that reason. So now I left it, it's got about 8 thousandths yet to go, but you don't want to bring it to its final thickness yet, because we still have some shaping to do on the back of the button, and that'll also remove some surface material here. So I've gotten to this point. A couple videos back I showed you that this kind of file just rips. Remember I said there leaves little spaghetti curls? Okay, that is what you use for the majority of the gross removal. And as you approach the final dimension, you start using these little narrow guys, and I'm showing you a bundle because they're in different grades. You don't want to make a mistake of getting it into a final dimension or near it having used a coarse file, because then you'll have grooves in it that by the time you sand those and get them gone, you're too small. In other words, the teeth were so coarse that they left furrows that were below the desired final dimension. So you want to sneak up on that. And I started here with a 0 and worked my way down to a number 3. And the only other tools at this point, of course, is this guy, which keeps things square when you are doing buttons in this style, and a tester kind of a thing. And by that, I see how it's kind of shiny behind the button there on both sides. Okay, that is a number 1 file that's whatever that is, 3/4 of an inch wide. And that you go over like so. It doesn't remove a whole lot of material, but it leaves an indication of any low spots or pits or what have you. And it's a wonderful way to get sneak up on your near final dimensions of that area. And also, as it gets closer and closer, you want to start sanding. And since I'm now to the point where it is shaping by sanding, there's not going to be many files left in the game. That's why I've decided to stop at this point and get caught up here. So there was some sanding here to get it kind of matte, and then this guy to get some shine, and it'll reveal all kinds of things when you do that. So at this juncture, we're ready to start working on the button, and I wanted to show you a new tool to do that, but it requires moving the camera. So there you go. I'll get her set up and see you there.